everybody, and welcome back to the Velo Podcast. Thank you for being here for another episode. My name is Mike Levy, and I learned a few important things over the last week. One of them is that Tadej Pogačar might be human after all. That's from the Amstel Gold race that we're going to unpack in a few minutes. And I also learned, thanks to Mattias Skjelmose, I hope I pronounced that name right, that you should never give up, no matter how outgunned you might be, and that sometimes being a little smart, a little clever outweighs pure horsepower. So today I've got European editor Andrew Hood, aka Hoody, on the show to unpack all the action from the Amstel Gold race, from Flèche Wallonne, and we're also going to preview the oldest of the monuments, the old lady Liège-Bastogne-Liège. Later on in the show, after we talk racing, I'm going to call up U.S. editor Elvin Holbrook because he's going to tell me about Factor's all-new Monza that was just released. I'm going to be honest, I don't know a single thing about this bike, but Elvin is going to fix that for me and you. He's also going to tell us about his new Cannondale Super X gravel bike that he just built up. But before that, Hoody, we have a lot of racing to talk about, and I have a question for you. You probably know the answer to this, but I didn't. Do you know what an Amstel is?
I do know what an Amstel is. I know that very well.
You would. You would. Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, it's kind of well, I don't want to degrade it that much, but it's kind of the Budweiser of Belgian beers. It's kind of,
really?
Yeah, or the Coors Light of Belgian beers. It's not
okay.
Because we get spoiled. Of Dutch beers, because we get spoiled in the Spring Classics with all these great beers in Belgium. But hey, Amstel's all right. It sponsors a bike race, so it definitely ranks high in my list of favorite beers for sure.
Yeah, it's sponsored that race since 1966, Hoodie, when the first race almost didn't happen because they accidentally scheduled it on something called the Queen's Day. Do you know about this holiday called the Queen's Day?
Oh, I didn't know that little anecdote, but I do know what the Queen's Day is. It is one of the biggest parties I've ever been to in my life. I remember the first year I flew to Europe to chase bike races. I flew into Amsterdam because I'd never been to Europe before. And I really wanted to go to Amsterdam. It was one of my kind of bucket list cities I wanted to check out. And the day we landed was Queen's Day. We had no idea what Queen's Day was. And it turns out that it's just a huge block party all over. It's celebrating the Queen's birthday. So it's just a huge block party across all of the Netherlands. And man, things got crazy in Amsterdam. If you're ever around for the Queen's Day birthday, put it on your calendar and head up to Holland because it's pretty cool.
Would you say that a lot of Amstel gets drank on the Queen's Day?
Oh yeah, and a whole bunch more.
Yeah, I imagine.
It's chaos.
Yeah, man. When I think of the Netherlands, I think of flat roads and wind and flat roads and probably some windmills and probably some more flat roads. That is most definitely not the case with the Amstel Gold Race. Hoodie, this thing is held in the south. It's very hilly. There's 3,100 meters of climbing. All of it is steep as hell. And I mean, we had a damn good race, didn't we?
Yeah, the region where the race is held, it's called the Limburg region of the Netherlands. And it is very hilly. It's not quite, like geographically, it's not quite in the Ardennes. The Ardennes are those hills that kind of in eastern Belgium, where the Flèche Wallonne and Liège-Bastogne-Liège are contested. But literally, this is just across the Meuse River. It's in the same region. But geographically, I've been pointed out many times, it is not considered the Ardennes. It's considered the Limburg region. But it's these, very short, steep hills, very narrow roads. Someone once said the Amstel Gold Race course is like a plate of spaghetti thrown on a table because they're just looping around and zigzagging up and down these little hills. And, the roads there are different than the Belgian roads in the sense that very narrow and steeper, as well as just a lot of traffic furniture out there on the roads. We didn't see too many crashes on the Amstel Gold Race, thankfully. The weather was good as well. But it was a fantastic day of racing. And, saw some surprises for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. You know who did crash? I think before the cameras actually came on, Remco went down fairly early in the race. So we're going to get to Remco because it makes it even more impressive what he's done. But I want to start with how awesome it was to see Julian Alaphilippe shoot out of the group, and the only person to go with him was Pogačar. But if you pause it right there and you look at Julian's face and you look at Pogačar's face, Pogačar looked like he was nose breathing. Let's be honest. Alaphilippe looked like he was about to pop a vein in his forehead. But it was amazing to see for however long it lasted. And it really kind of sent the race, it turned the race into a completely different thing. It was the move of the race in a way.
Yeah, it was almost like he was a setup man for Pogačar for kind of that trademark long distance move. Yeah, for a few minutes there, everyone thought maybe the Alaphilippe of the days of yore was back.
I was praying.
We all want to see Julian have that one more moment, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, he blew up pretty fast, as most people do when they're trying to go that far out and then trying to stay on the wheel of Pogačar when he turns on the gas. But that team is an interesting team. We'll see if Alaphilippe can do anything this weekend.
Yeah, that was amazing to see. And watching Pogi ride, just like for a lot of it, he was like 10 seconds off the front. He got up, the gap got quite a bit bigger. But I mean, I get nervous when somebody's tailgating me on the highway, and then you've got like these guys, Remco and everyone else. They're just, if you did anything wrong, these guys are going to be right on you. And he spent, I don't know, 20 something kilometers like that until something happened. They started closing the gap to Pogi. Two riders, Remco and Skjelmose. Mostly Remco. Skjelmose was being smart about it. But when was the last time you saw somebody reel in Pogi like that?
Yeah, I was surprised. I think a lot of people thought he was just gone in that situation.
Yeah.
Pogačar going into that race, I think he looked a little beaten down from Paris-Roubaix, right? Paris-Roubaix was just the weekend before, such a huge effort, kind of a big physical and emotional day for Pogačar. And he later explained there was quite a bit of headwind, and he was out there racing by himself the whole time. And he never really kind of got so far off the front that kind of snap that elastic, and everyone kind of gives up chasing. But kudos to Remco and Skjelmose. Those guys did not throw in the towel. And that changed the race right there, didn't it? Because everyone thought Pogi was gone. And then suddenly Pogačar started to sit up, started to look back, started to soft pedal. And you think, interesting scenario here. And again, everyone just thought Pogi was going to blow it up on the Coburg, the last kind of wall there going into the finish. Yeah. And that didn't happen either. And it came down to the sprint. And Pogačar, he is, he is his absolutely exceptional racer, probably the best racer I've seen in my kind of long career racing and chasing bikes. But hey, man, it's like anybody can win a bike race. And, the guy who won that race was not the one out of those three I don't think many people would have picked.
Dude, you take 100 race fans, put them in a room, and you say, Pogi, Remco, and Skjelmose, who is going to win the sprint? No one's picking Mattias. No offense to Mattias. Mattias probably wouldn't pick Mattias, which is why this was so amazing. And, in a way, like, I love seeing domination. I love it. I love it when, like, somebody is at a level that seems just like, you have these people who are otherworldly fit, and then you have somebody that is, like, measurably stronger than them. And that just doesn't happen all that often in this sort of scenario, for this long. So to see him get upset by somebody like that, like, it gives me goosebumps just thinking about it. It was cool to see. But I mean, the first thing in my mind is Paris-Roubaix is not like your normal bike race. So in my mind, Pogi's muscles, they've just been on a paint mixer for 6 hours, some days before that. He's got to be feeling it. And then Skjelmose, I mean, I don't know anything about cycling tactics, but I did read some people were maybe talking shit that he wasn't pulling as much. But like, Hoody, you're not going to pull Remco to the line. Who's going to pull Remco to the line? Nobody is.
Exactly.
So it was smart racing, 100%, I think. And it was amazing to see somebody else win in tall black socks and black shoes as well, too. I love it.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that sometimes in that situation, sometimes negative racing, nothing wrong with that. It's like when you know that a superior rider has the responsibility of a race, that's being smart by sitting in a little bit. You're going to pull enough to get to the line, to contest for the win, to keep the chasers from not latching on from behind. But, he played it smart. And I mean, I don't think anybody would have picked him to win in that scenario. But that reminded me a few years ago when I was thinking about that too. He's like, Van der Poel a couple years ago lost to Casper Asgreen in a 2-up sprint. After the Amstel Gold, remember, is 254 kilometers. Like you said, just relentless vertical. So anything can happen at the end of these 6-hour plus races. That's what kind of makes these monument races so interesting. Amstel Gold is not really considered a monument. It's kind of sometimes called the sixth monument. But at the end of these long, hard races, that's where you get people just cracking, people, pulling out these surprises out of their hat. And that's what we saw with Skjelmose. I mean, the guy is a quality rider, of course. He's won some big races. He has ambitions to become a GC rider. He wants to try to win a Vuelta someday or a Giro. I think he kind of admits he's not quite there at that level of Pogačar and the big four to win the Tour. But he thinks he has the qualities to win a Grand Tour, and perhaps he could. So for him, this is the biggest win of his career so far. Glad he actually ended up crashing in Flèche-Wallonne a few days later in absolutely horrendous racing conditions. We'll talk about that in a minute. But luckily, he's not too seriously injured. I think he's okay to race on the Sunday.
He, at the finish line, he looked like he surprised himself. Like, he looked like he had seen a ghost. He was just like, was that the finish line? Amazing. And we also, we have to shout out Remco too. Obviously, Remco, this is the first big one back for him. He did win a race just before. I forget the name of it. Probably something I can't pronounce.
Brabantse-Pijl. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, for Remco to come back, some might argue that he's as fresh as you could be, kind of. But on the other hand, I think these guys are getting stronger and stronger, and it's great to see Remco just like, quote unquote, come off the couch. Obviously not off the couch, but it was cool to see him come back, because there's a world where people don't come back from stuff like that. So, the women's race was a great one too. We had a home winner. Who won, Andrew?
Yeah, Bredewold, big win for her, typically riding for some of her more renowned teammates. And, that's some of these super teams, SD Works, they have such depth that they can bring in and rotate different riders. That's what's great about that team, kind of like UAE on the men's side. Even considering they lost a couple of big riders going to Vollering left, and the Swiss rider went to Movistar, Reusser. But that team is still so deep. And then here she is pulling it out to win Amstel Gold race, on home roads. And it doesn't get much better than that. I mean, again, a very hard race with the Coburg there at the end. She snuck away and stuck it.
Yeah, stuck away late in a season where, like I said, I like the domination, I like the winners to win. I appreciate that no matter who wins. But this is Amstel was a sort of race of upsets this year, which was pretty damn cool to see. Let's move on, though, from Amstel to La Flèche-Wallonne, a.k.a. Sprint Up the Wall, a.k.a. cold and wet as hell. This is one of the races, Hoody, where you kind of know where it's going to be made. You know what's going to happen. maybe not the most exciting race sometimes. We had Remco looking strong again. You mentioned Skjelmose crashed out. It looked like a handful of riders went down. Looks like they maybe hit some painted lines on some very wet roads. I want to shout out Ben Healy, Hoodie, because the last two races I've watched, Amstel and Flesh, Healy has been a bit of an agitator, which I love to see. He went, there's the third time up you could correct my pronunciation here, Hoodie, the Mer du Huy? Did I say that right?
Huy, Mer du Huy.
Huy, Mer du Huy. He attacked the last time up there, and he got a bit of a gap. There was like a couple bike lengths there. And then I think Pogi stepped on the pedals, and it literally made poor Ben Healy look like he had jammed his chain or something. Like there was a Healy attack, and then there was a Pogi attack. You know what I'm saying?
And that's kind of how it played out at the finish line too, wasn't it? Healy's an interesting rider. I mean, he, has that ability to really uncork these attacks in these are his kinds of races. Brabantse Peel, he won that a couple years ago. He's hoping for a big ride on Liège. He can go well in the mountains. He's not a pure climber, but he's like a puncher. He's one of these guys that, in these hilly profiles, that's really his terrain. And, he's had a pretty good spring. It's so hard to win these races. I mean, they're so deep, because you got the first layer of the Super Six dominating the races. And below that, you've got another 15, 20 riders, both in the men's and women's fields, who can win any of these races. And so for a rider like Healy to win any of this scenario, everything has to just go absolutely perfect. And at least he tried. I mean, he tried at the finish line at Flesh. He was the first one to really attack, because in the Mer du Huy, the famous climb there's kind of this corner. It's about 450 meters to go. That's where the steepest bit of the climb is. And that's where Healy went. And then that's when we saw Pogačar react. And I think I read a stat online that Pogačar's 10-second winning difference was the most in Flèche Wallonne history in the men's race. Because normally it could come in dribs and drabs, but it's a few bike lengths. But to get 10 seconds in 400 meters, that just shows you, what a huge, massive attack that absolutely was from Pogi yesterday on Wednesday.
Yeah. Shout out to Healy, because you know what it's like? It's like when you go in a group ride and your buddy, or maybe there's a couple buddies there that that can just smash you up the hill, down the hill, around the hill, through the hill, like in all the ways. But you still give it balls. And that's what Healy did. I like that. Like you have to think that you might win, even in this day and age when you're racing against Pogi and MVDP and those guys. Like you have to think that something can happen, like you just said, and Healy was thinking that. And also, it's cool to just see somebody stirring the shit up. That's what I want to see,
And it was so cold.
26%.
Yeah. I mean, that's the wall. The Mur is the wall. It's aptly named. There's actually a famous story there about a postman who has to deliver the mail, riding a bike up the Mer du Huy every day. I think he's on an e-bike these days, but like back in the day, I think he was on an old school push bike. And that guy always made the Belgian papers every year before the race. But it was so cold yesterday. There were some great, interesting reactions from the riders at the finish line yesterday, on Wednesday, saying things like Pidcock was saying his hands were so cold he couldn't change gears. So he was kind of stuck in the wrong gear in the final climb at the Mur, and he still got third. So that kind of says a lot about him. Other riders saying got too cold. Remco was saying he got too cold. And then other riders were saying they were too warm because the race was so fast they couldn't even have a chance to take off their rain jackets. And during the women's race, a little bit later, because the women finished after the men on a Wednesday, and the weather improved a little bit for the women's race later on in the afternoon, and they had a little bit better conditions to race in on that final lap.
Yeah, it looked like equal or more amounts of pain for the women going up that wall. It was a group looked like about 20, a large group at the end. Everybody was there, Niodana, Kopecky, Vollering, Borghini. And everybody was just creeping up that wall, looking left, looking right, waiting for somebody to go, and nobody went. And, as I'm watching that, Vollering, she's on the front of that thing, and she was on the front for the entire time, the important part going up there. And it looked to me like she was basically just trying to ride everybody off her wheel, which happens. That's what she does, isn't it? But that's not what happened this time, was it?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, normally in that scenario, she just keeps going and everyone's just getting off the back. Yeah, she had a great lead out from her teammate, Julia Labous. And it just looked like textbook Vollering. She was going to win and just blow everybody away. And I think that's what she thought was happening in her mind, is that she was just dusting everyone in her wake up that steep part. And then lo and behold, turns around and sees the form of Puck Peterson flying past her. And, huge win for her. She's one of these multidiscipline stars, does mountain biking. She had big disappointment in Paris last summer. She was hoping for a medal and lost out on that. And then, cyclocross rider as well. So this was her big win for this spring. She'd been close. I think she was third, maybe even Amstel. So again, the script always changes. That's what's so great about the spring classics. This is kind of why I love them, because anything can happen on these races, and every day it's all in, all or nothing. There's no holding back, waiting for the next day. There's no tactics, thinking about, okay, I'm going to save my legs for the mountain stage on Friday. No, it's like you're in to win, and you just go all out. And, sometimes the cards come up right in your favor, and that's what happened to, we saw some big names get upset over the last couple of races.
Yeah, which has been great to see. I'm going to suggest that maybe Vollering might want to use a helmet mirror next time. Just a little one off the side, and that way she can see Puck coming up. Because no one was going fast. It's so steep. No one's going fast. It's like, I couldn't ride a bike up there. I would maybe on a mountain bike. I might be able to get up it. But that way she would have seen people. She would have seen Puck coming up. Anyways, those were two great races. We've got another one coming up. Liège-Bastogne-Liège, the second to last monument of the season, the old lady. 252 kilometers for the men, 153 kilometers for the women, racing around Belgium. Hoody, what is the old lady known for? Can you tell me a bit about this?
Yeah, this is one of the, I think this is the oldest continuous race in Europe. Dates back, a long time. 18 something. I can't remember the exact number.
I think it's 1899 or something like that.
1899.
Yeah, crazy.
So, the course famously goes over the Ardennes, these kind of deeply wooded, steep hills in eastern Belgium. And some real, quite beautiful country there. Some great cycling terrain. If you're ever in Belgium, kind of Flanders gets all the limelight. But if you really want to do some good riding, the Ardennes is absolutely fantastic, both for off-road and road. There's some great mountain biking there. Houffalize used to have the World Cup back in the day, and there's some good gravel riding there too. And some good beer. Le Chouffe and Chimay is all down there, kind of down on the southern part of the Ardennes. So this race, starts in Liège, goes all the way down to Bastogne, kind of the infamous, famous place. World War II battles were there. You go visit that place. It's quite interesting historically to be in that area anyway. And then when it comes back, it's just climb after climb after climb. La Redoute is the famous one, about 40 Ks out. They've added La Roche-à-Faucon, some other climbs in between there and Liège to spice things up. A couple of years ago, they changed the finish because for a while, it actually finished in An, which was like a steep kind of almost Merge-Huy kind of uphill finishing kick on the kind of outskirts of Liège. And that race kind of just became too predictable over time. It was almost like Flèche Wallonne. Everyone knows that you just save for the last wall and you just save your legs for the last kick up the wall. And that's what was happening in Liège, is that, people would try to attack at La Redoute. They added this other climb in between, La Roche-à-Faucon. And then finally, a couple of years ago, I think now this is maybe the fourth year, where they've brought the finish back into the flats, into central Liège. Kind of opens up the race. It's not quite maybe as dramatic in terms of having that last final climb to the finish, But it does kind of create a different dynamic where there is that chase going into the finish of the last I think it's about 15 Ks coming off that last little hump into Liège. So we've seen some pretty cool racing there. The idea too is that maybe it opens up to the race to a variety of racers, like a rider like maybe Van der Poel could possibly win Liège in this new kind of format they have. And I think he was third even last year or 2 years ago. Van der Poel was third in this race. So that's kind of the idea behind why they made that change recently. But going into the race on Sunday, it's going to be, the story is going to be Remco versus Pogi. That's what everyone's going to be watching.
Yeah. Well, Pogi won last year with the way Pogi wins, with a beautiful solo. But do you know Remco's win percentage at Liège, Hoody? I looked it up.
Tell me.
100%. He's won every Liège he's done, which is 2 of them, which is more than one. So like a sample size of 2 is not terrible. Obviously that suits him. Obviously he's reasonably strong right now. And I don't know, like I think like is for me, that's who I would like to see win. I would like to see him do something special here, especially after the year he's had. Who do you predict to have a good race here, Hoody?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a similar cast of characters. I think I would personally like to see Pidcock in there, because that I think Pogačar is going to attack on La Redoute, which in the modern versions of Liège, it was considered almost too far away. But we saw he could change the script this year when he attacked on the Cipressa, at San Remo. So I think, because there's always the big selection there at La Redoute. But I think the Pogi's going to go try to basically drop everyone. I'd like to see maybe Remco and try to see Pidcock at least be in there in the mix. And maybe even on a couple of riders. This is kind of a race too where you can anticipate a little bit, get up the road, and try to just hang on to the wheel when the big guns come through. But it's going to be a race of attrition. That's always kind of the trademark of Liège. It's like the attack starts, the speed ramps up, and it's just the survival of the strongest.
Yeah, I have a question about Pidcock, actually. I went to the start list, and he is the only Q365 rider listed. Is that just because they haven't put others? Like, this is sort of a dumb question from me to you. Maybe I'll edit this out if it's too dumb. Would they send just him, or did they just not put the other riders on the start list? Q's not just going to send him alone, are they?
No, they'll definitely send a full team. Yeah, these one days they get 7 riders. So a lot of times these are the preliminary start list. When we join this podcast, it's still, I think, 4 or 5 days out before the race. So yeah, so typically a team will send in, a lot of times even the start list will be just through media reports or a rider saying online, it's like, hey, here's my calendar. I can't wait to race on Liège on Sunday. And sometimes the officials at the races haven't gotten those names yet. So, but yeah, he'll have 7 teammates. He'll have a few guys. Zukowski will be there, Canadian rider. And he'll definitely have a full roster backing him up.
Yeah. And I also didn't see Van der Poel on the start list, but he is going to be there, it sounds like.
Well, that's news to me if it is. My understanding, he's not racing the race. Has that changed?
Oh, well, he's not on the start list, so that means he's not racing, I imagine.
Yeah, no, I don't think Van der Poel. I think he's been at the beach playing golf. Last I saw.
That's. I bet you that's a good place to be. Pogi wants him there too, I think.
He's not going to be racing until the Tour de France is the last I heard.
Okay, perfect. Okay. So we definitely have some more room for maybe another upset. For the women, Hoody, Grace Brown won last year. Bergini went on that final climb with 13K to go. Gapped Voss and Kopecky. A group of 6 ended up together, and it was a sprint. Do you see it? Do you see this race for the women ending in a sprint again?
Yeah, this is the kind of race with this profile terrain that it's going to be a small, reduced group typically coming in. And that kind of race, yeah, I mean, you're looking at the riders with the best kick in that scenario. for a rider like Lorena Wiebes, I'm not even sure if she's going to be starting this race, but it's too hilly for her. But it's that kind of rider who has that kick at the end of a hard effort. It's going to win. So it's perfect for a rider like Kopecky, who obviously was not in the frame at Flèche because that wall is just a little bit too steep for her. But she should be able to get over these climbs. And if she's not with the favorites, the front climbers on these last couple climbs, she'll have the legs and maybe some collective interest or a couple teammates to help her tow her back to the front group and set her up for the sprint. But again, anything can happen in these races. This has been a pretty long, intense classics period. And this is the last one, right? I mean, this is kind of the last of the spring classics. The narrative changes after this weekend. We go into the stage racing. We got the Tour de Romandie, and then we go straight into the Grand Tours. The women's Vuelta a España is in May. The men's Giro d'Italia. It's a pretty busy racing calendar in May for the women. They hit the women's Vuelta. Then there's some racing in the Basque Country. All around Spain is a good solid month of racing for the women, all stage races. And then the men will be 3 weeks at the Giro. And then boom, we're right into June and the Tour de France in July.
And then it all begins. And then no sleeping for a month for you.
Yeah, we haven't slept for a month this past. That's the good thing about the classics too. It's like, you get a couple of days, get a day or two off between each race. You get to absorb it, reflect on it, savor it, get hyped up again. But in the Grand Tours, it's like boom, 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 nonstop.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, before I let you go, Hoody, I'm going to put you on the spot. Men's and women's winners for Liège. Go.
I'm gonna go with Kopecky and Pogi. Not very brave choices there, I know.
I'm only slightly braver than you. I'm gonna say Remco because I'm not gonna call it an upset, but I want an interesting, cool storyline, and Kopecky. There you go. Okay, Andrew, I'm gonna let you go. I'm going to call up Alvin. We're going to talk about a couple new bikes. Hoody, thank you for talking about the racing with me. It is going to be a hell of a weekend. And I think you and I are probably going to catch up next week and maybe talk about what happened at Liège-Bastogne-Liège. But I'll let you go. Have a good one, Hoody. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
All right, folks. Through the magic of editing, we have traveled from Spain, where we were talking to Andrew Hoody, to talk to Alvin in California about some brand new bikes. We have a brand new Factor Monza that has just been released, so we're going to talk about that. It's got some neat features, and it looks super high end, but maybe it's not. We're going to get there. We're also going to talk about the new Cannondale Super X. I want to say Super 6, but it's Super X. It is their new gravel race bike, and that's been released for a few months. We've already talked about it, but Alvin has just got his test bike. He has built it up. He has got a couple rides on it. So we're going to do some early impressions there. And then Silca has a new electric pump that we're going to talk about.
I mean, it's got a battery in it, but
I guess
the story isn't necessarily the pump here, I would say.
No, exactly. So we're going to talk about Silca's new electronic pump. Electronic pumps are all the rages right now, so we'll get to that. But first, let's go back to this new Factor Monza. Alvin, what is this bike? Who is it for? And what's like the main talking points of this thing?
Yeah, so I should say as background, I've had a decent amount of experience on Factor's top-end race bike, the Ostro Vam. That is a bike that you're seeing like IPT in the World Tour riding it. You're seeing Legion of Los Angeles, Justin Williams and his crew like riding it, and you're seeing a whole bunch of dentists now riding it too. And
fast bike.
I loved its handling, frankly. I think the finishing was really good, and at least on my sample, like it nailed every bit of the like premium bike like promise. Like it did everything that I wanted it to.
For people listening, there is a review video that Alvin has done that's on the website. So go watch that of the Ostro Vam.
Yeah, we'll link it down below. So the Monza, in essence, is kind of a cheaper. I mean, the easiest way to describe it is it's a cheaper version of that Ostro Vam. It's not exactly the same. Like it doesn't share the same tube shapes, but it is a less expensive version. However, according to like Factor's head of engineering, Graham Shrive, he said like this is the bike that we would design for ourselves at Factor, which I think is a good sign.
What does that mean though? Like, what do they like about the Monza that whereas the Austro Vam doesn't suit them? Why would they say that, I guess, is the question.
Yeah. So the way they're distinguishing this, there's a couple different ways they're distinguishing this. The key thing is that they're seeing the Austro as a bike for people who have a support car following them, who are professionals, who are just looking to go fast.
You know, all those people with support cars following them.
Yeah, exactly. Not all professionals have support cars, and not all people's support cars are professionals. But a lot of people are carrying a saddlebag. They have spacers underneath their stems and that type of thing, and they're probably riding a wider tire. And so the Monza kind of tries to fix all of that. So you've got 34 mil tire clearance, the ISO standard, I think 4 mil tire clearance on each side. So theoretically you could go wider. We'll test that out. It's got down tube storage, which Factor says. I mean, don't get too excited yet because it's not going to be the down tube storage you like, I don't think. But Factor says that removing the saddlebag and moving that stuff to the down tube saves like 6 watts in aero drag, kind of wild. And then the big thing that I think matters for the most of us is that it has the handling geometry of the Austro Vam, but it has like an additional about 10 mil of stack height across all the sizes, so fewer spacers.
Oh. Yeah, so fewer spacers, but you could still get your stem handlebar where they need to be. Excellent.
Yeah. You can get that kind of racy look, but you know, I rode my bike, I think the Austro Vam that I had with the tall headset spacer, which they're not offering here, and then a 5 mil spacer. And so with this, theoretically, I wouldn't have to run any spacers underneath the stem.
Yeah. Why did you tell me that I wouldn't like the down tube storage? Every bike should have down tube storage. So I see this. It looks good. It makes sense.
Well, I am positive that you cannot easily stick your fist inside of this down tube storage hatch.
It fails
it's
the
pretty
fist
slim.
test.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which maybe we should rename that. But they're saying it'll fit 2 tubes. It'll fit tire levers. It'll fit 2 CO2s in a patch kit in the down tube storage bag, which I think for most people is enough. Like,
yeah.
So that's cool. I think the other thing here, it's got SRAM UDH, the universal derailleur hanger. They're doing it a little bit differently though, in that they're calling it UDH Mini. So in an effort to improve heel clearance, like at the chainstay. So yeah, I can see your face. Levy is looking kind of confused. So if you look at SRAM UDH, like the design and the design requirements for it from SRAM, they recommend a minimum chainstay length of 415 millimeters or a minimum chainstay length to use transmission of 425 millimeters. And they say that so you can get the like correct chain lines on the 1x drivetrain, and they're doing that partially for like heel and crank clearance. So the idea with this mini UDH thing is that it's compatible with all that stuff, but it slims down the dropout. And so instead there's a 4.5 mil spacer outboard of the frame that kind of fills in the gap.
Oh, I see.
We'll put a photo up here. So they're trying to do the best of both worlds, make it lighter, give you chain like heel clearance, but UDH is nice.
So basically the UDH just sits inboard just a tiny bit for more clearance is what it sounds like.
So I would say what it is that it doesn't change the position of where it is, but in between the 2 bits of that like transmission mount, that direct mount, on like your Stigmata, for example, or on most mountain bikes or bikes with UDH, it's just there's the going from the outside in. There's a bolt. There's a spacer. There is the outer part of the mount, and then there's the carbon frame itself. And so what they're changing is the thickness of that carbon dropout right there.
Okay.
So they're thinner dropout and then filling in with 4.5 mil of spacer.
Immediately, I think of everybody out there who wants to make sure there's nothing weird and proprietary though. Uses a normal UDH derailleur if you want, normal axle spacing, normal things.
Yes.
Just want to make sure.
Normal dropout, it still works with transmission if you want to. You would just need that 4.5 mil spacer, which I don't think is that big of a deal in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. What else? Threaded bottom bracket, T47. I have to get back to them because they told me T47, but it might be T47A, which is slightly asymmetric. But threaded bottom bracket, nice to have.
I like these podcasts because I learned so much. UDH Mini, T47A. I'm like, what the fuck are those?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Those are factor specific things, but the T47 asymmetric is like it requires you to have a slightly different bottom bracket as far as I remember.
Oh, lovely. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, regardless of that, looking at this thing, it looks good. It looks like a fast Aero road bike, and I think we're going to see Aero road bikes and normal road bikes in the coming years with down tube storage. A ton more of them. It makes all the sense in the world. Just companies listening, just put stuff in your down tube. Figure it out. And Factor's doing it already. So I like it. Makes sense.
I agree. Factor does say that the down tube storage adds like 100 to 150 grams because of the molding and the materials and whatnot to make it work. It does result in this frame being kind of like porky, quote unquote. They're saying 1,100 grams for a 54 centimeter frame, which
but that's not like in the grand. I know that is heavier.
It's heavier than the cheaper Canyon Air Road. It's cheaper than the base level Tarmac SL8 by a few hundred grams, and then this frame set's still $4,000. So.
Oh, it's not exactly inexpensive. That's for sure.
Yeah. I mean, $6,800 for the Ultegra Di2 frame or a complete bike isn't bad, but
no, that's
again,
good,
like
actually.
I don't know. I gotta get my hands on this because like at least on paper, like the wheel set's pretty underwhelming for the price point, and then the frame's a little bit heavier than you'd like, but it kind of hits everything else that I would hope for in one of these bikes. I like the tire clearance. I like UDH. I like down tube storage, and it's Aero. They're saying so.
Do you still have the Ostro?
I don't. Sent it back. Sent it back. Yeah.
That would have been a good back to back.
It would have. I would have really liked it, but I do have my own personal Tarmac SL8 here. Which is kind of the standard frame. It would be probably a pretty comparable build between the two.
Okay.
And then I'm getting some other bikes later this year that would be pretty comparable to this, actually. So, yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll
say much
stay
more
tuned for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. You have another bike right now. You just got it, and you just built it up and did a couple rides on it. It's the Super X. Early days. You're going to do a review of this thing down the road at some point. When I look at this bike and I look at the specs and the numbers, it very much looks like a current day, speedy, maybe slightly pointy, very light gravel race bike. What are your early impressions? Am I wrong?
You're right. Oh. I would say.
Okay.
Yeah. It's, I think one thing, so I should mention at the end of Sea Otter, I wrote like a trends and analysis story. And one of the trends and takeaways that I found from Sea Otter is that like 50 mil tire clearance is the new 45. So all of these race bikes coming out with, it's like at this point, 50 mil tire clearance isn't like a huge thing. That being said, a lot of these race bikes that have come out in recent memory and are still coming out that I won't talk about, like don't have 50 mil tire clearance, and this one does. So I think that is helpful. It fits this Continental Terra, not Continental, this Specialized Terra tire in a 50 mil width that I have here. It's tight in the back, but it's nice to see that it'll fit that 50. So
I know that there are compromises with like when you have more tire clearance, like it does have to get a little bit heavier. Your rear end has to get a little bit longer sometimes, et cetera, et cetera. But if I am making a wish list, if I am running Mike's bikes and I am designing a new gravel bike, top of that wish list is like minimum 55 mil tire clearance. Just do it.
Yeah.
Like the new Allied Able, Yeah,
we were fawning about that bike.
Oh man, I've had that Able in a cart. on the Allied website, like,
Oh my
probably
gosh.
like 10 times over the last week, and I'm just like, oh, don't do it, don't do it. But anyway, back to the Super X, you could fit a 50, but it's tight. I think that's a bit of a shame, to be honest, just the way things are going. I think it's like it makes the bike current for today,
Yeah.
but that shouldn't be the goal. The goal should be to be like 2 years from now. This is an expensive bike. People are going to buy it, and some people are going to keep it for years. Some people keep it for many years. But the goal should be like 2 years from now, what are these things going to be doing? And they're going to be running big fat tires.
Yeah. I think the thing that most people aren't going to think about, and I'm going to sound like a bike industry apologist, but like they were projecting from like 2021 probably or just a few years ago. And so they were thinking, oh, everyone's on 42s. Let's give them a little bit extra. So let's give them a 48 on our race bike, or a 50 on our race bike. But I agree. Like I don't know. I think the bikes that are going to be really popular are going to have that big tire clearance, but maintain the kind of proportions in the geometry of these kind of more road centric gravel bikes out there.
Yeah. So you're going to do a review of this thing. You got 2 rides on it. Early impressions. How does this thing feel?
So I have ridden the last generation bike, which was actually called the Super 6 Evo SE or CX, depending on what you're talking about. So they went Super 6 Evo, and now they're back to Super X. This bike doesn't feel that different in first impressions. The tire clearance, the tire is a big difference to me, I think. Because that old Super 6 Evo SE, you could only fit a 44. And that was you'd see Alex Howes at like SPT Gravel. He was riding a 47 slick on it, but he was a tight 47. And I wouldn't have done that on my own personal bike that I paid money for. So early impressions, it feels the same. And that makes sense because the geometry hasn't changed since it was last called Super X. So
Oh, Alvin, I have thoughts. I want the geometry to be different. I want the geometry to be a little bit more relaxed, but I obviously, I'm not going to be racing this thing in a pack on a sketchy road. And, I feel like I'd want a little bit slacker and a little bit longer, but we'll wait to review and find out what you think long term, I guess.
Well, I mean, I thought this review when I reviewed the Trek Checkpoint, and I didn't have the Trek Checkmate, but my colleague Will did, and we talked about the 2 bikes, and I came away thinking people need to buy this Trek Checkmate instead, because it had the 50 mil tire clearance and it was more upright and that type of thing. And Cannondale has their equivalent of the Checkpoint. They have a Topstone, which has they're claiming 50 mil tire clearance. I've been told, because I don't have the bike yet, but I've been told it's a pretty darn ample 50 mil tire clearance. And it kind of rectifies some of those things. But I would hope, I mean, like, at least ideally, like, this Super X would have had like a lower bottom bracket, for example, to like counteract the bigger tires that people are riding, for example. And the invariably shorter cranks as well that people are using and that type of thing. But say Levy, it's a good bike. So far, so good. I'll have more
I will say
insights to come.
It's probably the best looking gravel bike out there currently. There's something about it that I like. I don't know what it is, but visually it's just gorgeous.
Yeah, no, it definitely hits all the right notes, I would say. I think that Allied Able, the new Able, we keep talking about it, but that's a good looking bike. There's a reason why it's in your shopping cart, evidently. And then
that purple
there are a lot
of color. God damn, I need it. Oh, maybe today's the day. We'll see.
Yeah, talk to me before you do that, and I'll talk you off the ledge or something like that.
Okay, I don't know. So new Super 6, you're going to do a review of that down the road. We'll look forward to that. What model do you have? And can you just tell us a little bit about the spec before we move on?
Yeah, so it's I don't remember what wheels it has, actually. I should look that up. But it's got Shimano GRX Di2 2x.
Okay.
Which is a fun build to see on a bike like that. You don't see GRX 2x on many gravel bikes anymore.
Yeah,
yeah,
especially
you would expect
speedy, racy ones like that.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be surprised. I don't know. We'll see what happens. But I like having 2x. It doesn't make a ton of sense out here for me, frankly, because again, a lot of the gravel that I'm riding can just as easily be done on a hardtail, and it might even be faster. So 1x makes a lot of sense out here. But 2x is nice to have. I like a front trailer.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't think most
that'll
people
be...
do though.
No. Yeah, you are in the minority these days.
Yeah.
Okay. That'll be a good review. So we'll stay tuned for that. We have one more tech item to talk about before we wrap up today's show, and that is an electronic pump from Silca. And when you said those words to me, the first thing I picture is a 3D printed titanium pump that costs $3,000 and is better by a little bit. But that's not the case.
Yeah, some sort of marginal gain that they're going for, and
I love Silca.
Yeah, they do fantastic stuff, and I'm glad that they're here. I think. No, so it's called the Electrico. There's two versions of it. There's the Electrico Mini and there's the Electrico Ultra. Our own Josh Ross actually has it. The big thing that they're claiming, so the Mini I think is the one that's really interesting because it's the smallest of these like portable electric pumps that are suddenly flooding the market. Like that's worth its own story. Like, where are all these pumps coming from? Like, what's going on here? What is
it was
Big
just
Pump
Foompa
doing?
forever, and now it's a whole ton more. Yeah.
The thing here, Silca is claiming that's 4 to 8 decibels quieter than the competition, which doesn't sound like a lot, but if you're familiar with the decibel system, that is magnitudes quieter than.
Oh, I didn't know that. It's like Richter
pumps.
scale.
Yeah.
How it works.
Exactly.
I did not know that. Okay.
Yeah. So they're saying it's a lot quieter. I obviously haven't gotten my hands on it. That's Josh. He's got it. And I don't anticipate that I'll ever get my hands on it because apparently, according to Silca, there's only 100 coming to the US between these
Josh
two.
is never going to give that to you.
No, absolutely not. And why would he?
This
is a trophy that he should put in his case and hide away.
Elvin, are these pumps, or maybe just the mini version, is this something that you bring on a ride with you, or is this a shop?
So that's kind of why they have two versions. So the mini is supposed to be something that you can put in your saddlebag. It's only supposed to give you like 2 or 3 inflations max. And then you have the ultimate, which is supposed to be something that you leave in your shop, and maybe carry around with you if you're a masochist.
If I'm running tubeless tires like a smart person on my road bike or my gravel bike, and I get a flat and all the air comes out of it, I really hope that the bead doesn't come off the rim seat, of course.
Yeah.
But if it does, can these pumps reseat a bead, or is it not for that?
In my experience, no. However, in my experience, I've only had one pump and frankly tire and rim combination where I've been able to do that relatively easily.
Yeah.
How often? I guess Josh and I have talked about this a bit because I test, like when I can, I will, if I have a new tire, I will test to see, can I seat this with a hand pump? Which hopefully that never has to happen to anyone, but it's happened to me a couple times, like kind of shockingly. Well, 2 times shot, like not on purpose, and then 1 time I wasn't thinking and I undid the bead to look at how much tubeless sealant there was, found out there was not enough tubeless sealant, and I couldn't do anything because I forgot to bring tubeless sealant, and then I had to reseat the bead. So have you ever had to reseat the bead of a tire, like trailside or roadside?
With a small pump, it does not work.
Yeah.
Like I love my 1-up pump, but it just doesn't move enough air fast enough. So I guess the counterpoint to that, like what I wanted to say is like, well, if this thing can't seat a bead, why would you bring it with you? But the counterpoint is, ain't no mini pump seating any beads on any of my wheel and tire combos, to be honest. So
the one successful one I've had was a 30 mil Conti GP5000 STR tire on a Campagnolo Bora Ultra WTO rim.
Very common.
And I removed the valve core took a Silca Tactico pump, which is great in moving air, and I just started going ham on it, and lo and behold, I got home. That was crazy. Like, I'd never recommend that to anyone else, but that is my truth. That is my experience. One time. So
I just wonder, like, I see some people out there not taking pumps with them and bringing these small electronic pumps now. And I just wonder if we are at that point where that is something that I also do. I don't know.
I'm not there yet. I am not doing that myself. And that is because I don't trust myself to keep this thing charged fully.
Yeah. Okay. That's fair.
Yeah. So that's kind of my worry. And so I am fortunate that I can kind of, like, I have done some like pump testing myself. I have like a beat up Blackburn Airstick SL that's like probably 6 inches long that I'll carry around with me in like a pinch, or if I'm like doing like a race, like a road race or something like that. Otherwise, I have a Silca Tactico pump that I love and will become an heirloom that I pass down to future generations. And then I have a wolf tooth pump that I also really like too, and it's got built-in tools and that type of thing. And so that's what I'm bringing, because I don't know, I don't want to bring CO2, frankly, if I don't have to, and I don't want to use CO2 if I don't have to, and I don't trust myself.
I use CO2 to
pumps.
balance it out for you being a good human. I balance that out by using multiple CO2s every day.
Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you. All right. Well, I mean, it's, all of this, like, saving the environment stuff, that is like, it is up to us, the individual, to fix it,
Right.
And it's up to us to not use CO2 cartridges in a pinch in the rare instance that we need to seat a bead, heaven forbid, or something like that.
I'm in my shop. I have this great floor pump here that seats everything. I'm still going to use... No, I'm just joking. I'm not going to use CO2 in my shop. That would be absolutely ridiculous. I'm mainly just saying that to make people angry.
Yeah, I mean, I don't blame anyone for using CO2. It's so easy, and it makes sense. But for me, in my life, like, I will bring a pump with me, like a standard hand pump.
Same.
So, anyways, I do want to mention, like, the quietness of this pump and the size of this pump are like one thing, but Silca says there's only 100 coming, and that's because the math doesn't math anymore because of tariffs. Like,
oh wait, that's why it's not like just limited to be because it's super expensive. It's limited because of the tariffs.
Yeah. So I will read the note in there. So we have it in our This Week in Tech story, which I'll link below, but here's what Silca has to say. Due to the significant impact of current U.S. tariff policies on imported goods, these products are not economically viable for sale within the U.S. market currently. This unfortunately means that Silca's largest historical market will not have immediate access to these groundbreaking pumps. Silca remains hopeful that these trade barriers will be resolved in the future to allow U.S. cyclists access to the Electrico series.
How much is this pump, Alvin?
So it's $120 for the mini one, or it's $150 for the ultimate. So
that's honestly less than I thought you were going to tell me.
Man, yeah. I mean, I thought they'd be cheap. I mean, there's a lot of really inexpensive electric pumps out there, and Silca's price there's accordingly.
Silca-ish. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I don't know. Josh got one because there was a shipment that came in early and they have them here. But once they're sold, Silca says that unless the tariff policies change, that they're not going to import any more to the U.S. So for you in Vancouver, you can start hoarding them, or in British Columbia, start hoarding them.
Collector's items.
Yeah.
Collector's items. Yeah.
Bring them across the border. I didn't say that.
No.
Yeah.
All right, Alvin. We covered a bit of tech here. It was good to have you on the show. We talked to Hoody before you got here. We did a bunch of race coverage of Amstel and Flesh, and we did a Liège-Bastogne-Liège preview. So it was good to have you come on, talk about some bikes. I look forward to that Super X review. Everybody go to the website to read about the new Factor Monza and the down tube storage that makes sense that every frickin' bike should have and will have. in the coming years. And it was great to have you all here for another episode of the Velo Podcast. And as always, leave a comment and share it if you liked what you heard. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you around.